So, hello and welcome to Media Musings for those who are lurking in the chat and or watching in the future. This week we are talking about a movie about a person who wears the mask of a very wealthy CEO who then removes that mask to take out his aggression on those less fortunate than him. And of course, this is starring Christian Bale. Yes, we are indeed talking about Oh, wait, we're talking about American Psycho.
Yeah.
Something tells me Christian Bale got a bit typecast after this movie.
If he'd been typecast, he'd have been cast as the Joker. I told you this. Yeah, American Psycho, my pick again.
Yeah.
I keep picking movies I've never seen, and I should stop doing that because it leads to weird places.
Yeah.
New rule. Noodle's only allowed to recommend movies Noodle has seen. Yeah. I have thoughts. I have many thoughts.
Yes.
But I have thoughts.
Yes.
Imagine having thoughts. Couldn't be me.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to,
Never.
like heads up, if you want to play a drinking game on this stream, you're going to want to use water. You'll be very hydrated.
Yeah. Drinking game is every time Noodle says the word power. And also every time they snort coke, you should probably sip.
Well, I mean, they only
and every time the plot becomes incomprehensible, you should down the bottle. You're gonna need at least 6. I think that about covers the drinking game rules, doesn't it? Drink responsibly.
Yeah.
Well, I've got my Malibu and pineapple, so I am ready to die.
Yeah. Well, I'm drinking Pepsi, but I think the amount I'm going to have to drink, even I'm going to be dying.
So.
Did this movie?
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that you're going to notice, I'm going to be talking about this movie a lot relative to other movies that either influenced it or it has clearly influenced TV shows, etc. You're also going to you need to understand that we are all adults. We understand this is fictional, and therefore we are suspending our disbelief and working on the same moral framework as the characters. That's important for the point when Chaos and I sit here and bemoan the incompetence of the serial killer. When the actual serial killer
that is a good clarifying stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
And also, blanket trigger warning, it's American Psycho.
Yeah. A lot of sex, a lot of drugs, a lot of gore. Just...
Actually, not that much on screen.
Yes. I don't think any dogs die in this one, so that's maybe the trigger warning it doesn't have.
Yeah, the kitty nearly died. Nearly.
And he did kick a dog, which is probably the worst thing he did.
Yeah, like by a mile. But I will say, like, there was enough gore.
Yeah.
It's like, that's very nice, but that is now enough.
Yeah.
And it did, like, it did avoid a lot of the things I was worried it would turn it into a slasher movie.
Yeah.
Although it could very easily, with a few different camera angles and a bit more like ketchup, be a slasher movie.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's funny because, like, what would almost seem like the goriest sequence is the opening title until it cuts away and you realize, oh, that's not fake blood. That's... catch up.
Yeah, I will say the opening title for this. I'm gonna be tweeting Brian Fuller later.
Yeah.
I have thoughts. The opening title of this is very similar to like the aesthetically to sort of NBC Hannibal, and you know I love that show, folks. But even the white tablecloths and the way it's done, it's very Hannibal. Like I got about 5 minutes into this and I was like, am I watching the right? Did I click the? Yeah. It's like, is this the right movie?
And so it's like it is a very clever, misdirect, because you're going into it, you're just like, okay, I'm watching a movie about a serial killer, and then during the opening titles, it's this very artsy red liquid being dropped on white surfaces.
Yeah, it's very Hannibal Lecter. It is. It's just Hannibal Lecter. But in any iteration you like, frankly. Yeah. But yeah, it was weird. It was, to me, as a fan of the Hannibal TV show, it was weirdly comforting as a cold open. I was like, okay, this is my wheelhouse. I get this. I'm here for this. But folks, NBC Hannibal is not a horror show. It's a romantic comedy. The fandom has spoken. So yeah, I was just like, cool. It's gonna be, it's gonna be artsy and it's a little bit of cannibalism on the side, but he's gonna be polite and decent, and yeah, like I was thinking, cool, Hannibal Lecter returns.
You did not get that.
No, I did not. And I owe an apology to Hannibal Lecter because it was room to assume I would, just based on the aesthetic of the opening. Yeah. Hannibal Lecter would eat this guy for lunch.
Yeah, what take you don't get your brains eaten for that assumption?
Yeah. Hannibal Lecter would eat this guy for lunch and would, be neater about it. Much neater.
Yes. He'd also probably complain about this guy's manners.
Yeah, it is. When you compare the table manners of this guy and Hannibal Lecter, it's like a surgeon and a friggin' ape. It's just... Yeah, no.
Though...
Icky, folks!
Yeah.
Icky. But yeah.
The very initial shots of this film, and not just that very first shot, but the first few, felt very disjointed to me. And I feel like that was an attempt to get a bunch of information on screen at once. But it just meant that it took me twice as long to get my head around which characters were.
To be fair, they're all white, young middle-aged white guys in suits. I couldn't tell you their names or who they are.
And also,
several times in this show, I looked at a scene and I couldn't pick out the main character. People all look the same to me.
Also, to be fair, I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Because...
Which is nice considering the undercurrent of racism, sexism, xenophobia, ableism, anti-Semitism. Am I missing any?
Probably. This movie is very ham-fisted in its purported critique of the American jet set culture, of the corporate culture of the 80s.
Yeah. I will say it does get that culture spot on.
Yeah.
From what I know of that culture, having not lived through it, it does get yuppie culture spot on. It's like... Also, is yuppie a word in America?
Yeah.
I don't know why, but the word yuppie to me, I only ever hear it in a South London accent. Probably because I watched way too much Only Fools and Horses as a child.
Well,
but
and
the idea of a yuppie to me is fundamentally like a Londoner. I don't know why.
Well, remember in the murder apartment, there's die yuppie die.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
why I was like, it struck me as so weird. I was like, I read that wall in the voice of Del Boy Trotter, which completely ruined the impact of that moment.
Yeah, I don't imagine that was what they were going for.
No, but you know, stood up at the bar, half expected him to fall. Sorry, I've got the giggles. Carry on.
Yeah. And I mean, the first bit of this movie is almost comedic.
It is. I don't think it's comedic. I think it's farcical.
Yeah.
It's like it's obviously a farce. Like the whole point of this movie that it's getting it is his entire life is a farce.
Yeah.
It's fake and it's laughable and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Which it does, because you know you're watching a thing about a serial killer, it makes you uncomfortable. But if you were watching that and it was the start of a comedy movie, you'd find it funny.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's all about the tone of what you're expecting to come.
Yeah. And this movie does play very well with expectation, and it's very good at I don't know if it does it deliberately, but it kind of almost, and I'll give them the credit whether it's deliberate or not. Sometimes there's certain bits in the scene where it kind of just jars to a halt because he's clearly playing the part of a normal guy, or what
Yeah.
he thinks a normal guy is, and then it goes too far or something happens and it pulls you up short, and it's really irritating to watch it as a film because you can't just sink into it. You're constantly being brought back to conscious awareness that this film, it's just uncomfortable to watch. It's cringe worthy is what it is. It's cringe, and it plays with that sense of cringe, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Or what an interesting but likely, a bit unethical experiment would be is to take people who have never seen, American Psycho, don't tell them the title of the movie, tell them they're watching a comedy, and then show them American Psycho with the title screen removed
and see what happens. Yeah.
That
think
would
if
be
you
quite
told them it was a rom-com, that would be funny.
Yeah.
It highly unethical, but
yes,
yeah, highly unethical.
yes,
and you would need a lot of debriefing afterwards.
yeah. Like
And
we're talking.
I
I think we're getting into Stanford Prison Experiment unethical territory there.
Yeah, I mean it's not quite Tuskegee, but it's definitely unethical.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other thing I will point out: when was this film made? When was this film actually made?
It came out in 2000. It's based off a book that was published in 1991.
I am going to say I would not have put this film as a 2000 film. The 80s vibe is spot on. If you'd have told me this film was a contemporary for The Godfather or for, well, The Godfather was the 60s, but even like it's spot on within the time.
Yeah.
There's a few little niggles, the technology's a little bit more 90s than 80s. But generally, I have to assume it's faithful to the book because only a book written in 91 wouldn't make the mistake of having things that happened after 91 in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to assume it's quite faithful to the book. Very 80s, that whole yuppie culture thing, but also just in the aesthetic of the film. Did anyone else pick up on this? Like, it felt like the 80s watching it. It's like there's the bit where he sets off all the car alarms. One of the cars he sets off is an Audi Quattro. Like, that's just, yeah.
It certainly
of course,
felt like
you'd pick that out.
Yes, because that's
it
what
certainly
was...
felt like they kept it pretty. It almost felt like they tried to make up for narrative inconsistencies with like setting consistency.
Yeah, I mean, the narrative is all over the shop. The pacing's shot to hell. Quite literally in one case. You know, it's got all the classic tropes of that annoy me in movies. But if you give way more credit than is due to the film creators, and I mean way more credit than is probably due to the creators, you could probably read into all of those things as being deliberate as plot devices.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's interesting to talk about those things, so I will. But do I actually believe a lot of them were deliberate? Nah.
Yeah, I am of a similar position. Like, they're cool, and these are interesting things to look at from our present lens. But you do have to death of the author it a little bit to get to them, I think.
Now, and of course, since none of us have read the book, we can't speak as to whether those were, those choices were made out of trying to be faithful to the book or for the purpose of the movie.
There is something I do want to say before we dive into this head first. This character is not a psychopath. Psychopaths are not murderers. Psychopathy is a very hotly contested topic in psychiatric circles. Whether it exists, whether it doesn't, how it presents, how it doesn't. All of that's still up for debate. And psychopathy, even if you do say psychopath, is a very outdated term that we don't use anymore because it's not the 80s and we're not these people.
Yeah.
It's ASP. Is it ASPD now? It's
Yeah,
ASPD,
like antisocial.
Yeah, it's ASPD.
It's an extreme antisocial personality disorder. There is help available. You probably know at least one psychopath. 20% of people are psychopaths.
Yeah.
By the definition of what
I've met
is medically.
I've met people with psychopathy diagnoses, and some of them are genuinely really lovely.
Yeah, I've got friends who have got a diagnosis of ASPD, and they are lovely. They are absolutely lovely. They wouldn't hurt a fly. They just feel slightly differently, and occasionally they'll say something and you'll go, we aren't experiencing this thing in the same way right now. So it's just like being friends with anyone on the autism spectrum or on the depression spectrum or the trauma spectrum or any other spectrum you want to throw at. Basically, it's like being friends with any other fucker in the world.
Yeah.
We're all mad here. You know at least one psychopath. Psychopaths do feel emotion. They do feel pain. They do feel a form of empathy, or they at least understand empathy on an academic level.
Yeah.
And are able to, through practice, apply that in real life. They're not monsters. And if someone tells you that they've had a diagnosis of psychopathy, completely discount anything you've seen on any movie, TV show, or anything about what that means.
Yeah.
Speak to them. Because 9 times out of 10, it's not what you think.
or
that-
to point back to the Silence of the Lambs stream, there's no such thing as a pure psychopath.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a pure psychopath. Although movies like to play with it because it's a compelling idea and it's frightening as fuck. But if you think about it, what movies, and I want to talk about this in a bit of depth.
Yeah.
When we think about, as a lay people, not on academic terms, what we think of as a psychopath: emotionless, lacking empathy, prone to fits of violence, sudden temper, ability to lie about who and or what they are, i.e. mask themselves. That's not a description of a psychopath. That's a description of every autism-coded robot in every sci-fi show you've ever seen.
Yeah.
That is Data. That is Mr. Spock. That is, you can go on. It's not a diagnosis you should want, Mark Caesar, because at the end of the day, psychology now only diagnoses something if it is having a detrimental impact on your life. Like that is in most diagnostic criteria now, that for something to be diagnosable, it has to be having a negative impact on your life. So it's probably not something that you want, because that means it's doing something. It's A, noticeable, and B, it's seriously damaging some aspect of your life.
And to also, I'll just gesture vaguely in the direction of Shannon Q's video on why religion is not a mental illness.
Yes, also that. But yeah, there's a lot of ASPD. There's a narcissistic behavior cluster, but everyone is, again, there's a lot of narcissists out there in the world. You've probably met a good half dozen. I would need the fingers on both hands to count the ones I know for a fact are narcissists, never mind the ones I don't. It is what it is. But all that said, this character is a caricature. He's an archetype. He's not representative of anything real. The closest you're going to get is like a true crime thing. But he's not. He's clearly written by someone who had an understanding of psychology at the time it was written. But that is very flawed and out of date now.
Yeah, and I think that it's also, for some of the conversations we might end up having, important to have acknowledged that, like, hey, this is very much not representative of the actual mental health stuff it's apparently describing.
Yeah. We had a discussion before
because we can
stream.
We
And this character's a lot of things, but a psychopath is not one of them.
Yeah.
Are there tendencies towards antisocial behavior disorder? Yes. But also there's some other stuff in there that I think would preclude a diagnosis on that basis. Even with all the killing and
Yeah.
Even with all that, there's still stuff in there that you kind of look at as in modern day and go, it's not a psychopath.
And to paraphrase a quote from another 2000 movie, if everyone's a psycho, no one is.
Better add that movie to the list of things to watch because I don't recognize that quote.
The actual quote is, and when everyone is super, no one will be.
Okay. Although that guy was, again, that guy
yeah.
was not a psychopath either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my, the point, like, the film is ham-fistingly trying to make is the superficiality of American corporate culture makes everyone psycho.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can shoehorn anyone into any diagnosis.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure someone could sit and watch this stream or any other stream we've done and go, yep, that person's a psychopath, that person's a narcissist, that person's that person's that. And it's just us. There's always a danger of overdiagnosing with these hot button buzzwordy diagnoses because they're interesting and they make headlines.
Yeah.
Which is why I couldn't stand Chilton when we watched Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Because he's the exact kind of person who would do that. I diagnose the psychopath. I diagnose Bateman as a psychopath.
Yeah.
See the book he'd write, can't you? That's a narcissist right there. But all that said, taken, given, whatever, the film itself, the opening is weirdly jarring.
Yeah.
So we get this really fancy restaurant vibe. And then he's with his buddies talking what I will politely call locker room bullshit.
Yeah, in what we learn later is a bar, but it looks
that's one way of putting it.
It looks like a fancy restaurant.
It does. It looks like a boys' club, doesn't it? It looks like the kind of place 1700s with a cigar and a glass of brandy, and it's that vibe.
Yeah.
It's that very much that old boys' club kind of vibe. And they're being, again, lad culture. They're being lads.
Yeah.
So, and then he calls out this other guy for his anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Which is immediately jarring. And I think power to either the director or the actor, whoever managed to pull that off, because I've never heard such a well-presented argument against anti-Semitism delivered in such a way I actually like. That's creepy the way he delivers it.
Yeah, or like you said before the stream, it's there's such a thing as being too woke.
There is, but it's like it's not that he's too woke. It's that these are not the droids you're looking for. It's the lights are on, but no one's home.
Yeah,
like he's saying these things, and it's like
it doesn't
citing a textbook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like he's presenting a position that he's thought about and has opinions on. It feels like he's presenting information.
Yeah, and he does that a lot throughout this film on various things. And this is what I mean by it's very... Which is why if I was looking at this character, and again, in the chat, Mark Caesar's right, it is very problematic to diagnose psychiatric conditions and you should take your time. But as a intellectual exercise, if I was looking at this, that would be one of my sort of first, this person's on the autism spectrum. Like, regardless of anything else, this person's on the autism spectrum. Because it's that thing of learn it, and he even says it himself, I'm trying to fit in.
Yeah.
That's masking. That is absolutely masking. Now, no one take that out of context. I'm not saying people who are autistic are likely to become serial killers.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying.
Well,
no,
and I think that like internal I'm trying to that I'm trying to fit in line as part of the eternal or internal monologue where he's literally pulling the face mask off.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's universal across all neurodivergent types.
Yeah.
Like, we're all trying to fit in to some extent. Like, whether you're neurodivergent or not, I think.
Oh,
He
yeah,
takes it
like
to
masking
extremes.
is a pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah. So there's that. Yeah. And just the very structured way he goes about his life. Again, highly indicative of autism spectrum behaviors, OCD. There's half a dozen things that could be part of a symptom cluster for. And I'm not going to sit here throughout this stream and disclaim everything I say as this is a completely intellectual exercise. Yeah. He's not a real human being. What I'm saying makes no difference whatsoever. But
also it tells us that, and we see this and we see this demonstrated throughout the film, that Patrick Bateman is obsessively conscious about his standing in society and how he's presenting to the world.
Yes. And he's he's clearly like playing a part. This is not who he is underneath. I don't think he's a serial killer underneath either. I think he's someone who cracked.
Yeah.
And look, we all know what happens when Wall Street guys crack. But,
I think that something that I noticed when we were watching it as well is that there were a lot of moments where it almost felt like the writers were trying to induce some sort of uncanny valley thing with it.
Oh, like definitely, especially in the scenes where he'll be having a normal conversation, and they'll just say something really, really fucked up, and everyone just ignores it.
Yeah. And then occasionally they'll go quiet because it'll be so fucked up they can't ignore it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah. Although, again, references to Hannibal Lecter and the face peel.
Yeah.
Like, it just, vibes. The vibes are off with this dude. But I will say I did appreciate the montage at the beginning, which to bring a bit of levity, because we've been quite dark for the last half hour.
Yeah.
Bit of levity. That montage of him taking a shower and discussing his skincare routine was very obviously pitched at the female gaze, and I appreciate it. Like, it is very, like, if you want to film a character, like, in such a way that women generally are going to be attracted to that character, and because it's a very different way of filming it when you're filming for the male gaze. That's how to do it. Like, soft voiceover, talking about his routine, seeing him showering, seeing him put himself together. A little bit of muscle, not too much, nice, tasteful shots. It's that montage is clearly geared for the women in the audience.
Yeah.
And it's clearly,
I thought it was quite an interesting,
make him attractive.
Yeah.
Which
I think with that as well, it's quite an interesting style choice that I kind of get why they did. That they chose to have like a section of the film occur before the narrative that might be perceived as like an intro narrative.
Yeah, it does feel like the first part of this film, in a way, is attempting to humanize him.
Yeah.
Which, again, if he was real, would be incredibly problematic. Dharma. Sorry, something stuck in my throat. But for a fictional character, I'll let it slide. But
Also,
because fiction isn't reality, etc., etc.
also, I think this is one of the earlier examples of the hot serial killer trope.
2000. The Hannibal series was early 90s. I mean, I suppose it depends what you're defining as a serial killer.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
it's a definite.
I feel like earlier can also be said as well.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, nowadays with Netflix coming up with, like, you know, Dahmer and the other one that I forget that came like a year or two
Bundy,
ago.
was it?
Yeah.
Did they do Bundy? I can't remember. They did some wacko. Like, I'm all for respecting mental health and all the rest of it. You know I am. But those people, I don't watch those things because they annoy me. And mainly the reception of those things annoy me, because if what you took away from watching something about a serial killer was that he was cute or that he was hot, you're the one who needs therapy. Like,
Yeah. Though, I mean,
yeah.
that being said, there is, and if I remember this correctly, I may be completely off base on this. There is something of a statistic where most serial killers do tend to be conventionally attractive, charismatic people.
Yes, because if you're not conventionally attractive and charismatic, you get caught very early on, and the police actually do want to charge you. It's hashtag power.
Yeah, it's
all about social power dynamics. And it's not.
Yeah.
If you take away from seeing about a serial killer, oh, they were hot, aren't they hot? Weren't they cute? I feel sorry for them. You are part of the problem.
Yeah.
Because the point is not that they were hot and we should pity them. Although, frankly, in some cases we should pity them because there's clearly something seriously wrong there. But they were hot and society let them get away with it because society thought so too.
Yeah.
And that's some people get the first half of they were hot. They then don't acknowledge the next bit. And that I've got friends at work who have gone gaga for Dahmer recently, and I'm just like, you realize he was a serial killing cannibal, right?
Yeah.
Like this was real life. This is not like me fangirling over Mads Mikkelsen as Hannibal. This is real life shit.
Yeah.
With a side order of racism on top. I just and damn. Let's not get started on Dahmer. I won't stop. I have thoughts. But yeah, it's. This film is. I think this film makes me uncomfortable in the context of that social phenomena happening around us.
Because it very much brings it to the fore.
Yeah, and I think it hits a bit close to home right now.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but it hit a bit close to home that everyone sort of views this guy as he's got a different woman every night of the week. He's got this flash apartment. He rides around in a limo. He's just flash.
Yeah.
And therefore he gets away with it.
And for the most part, he only shows his true face to people who are beneath him and can't do anything about it.
Yeah, there's power dynamics going on there as well.
Yeah.
Just leave it up at this point.
Yeah, for instance, the scene with the homeless man.
I will point out, how many black people were in this film?
I think just the homeless guy. No,
Who was it?
no. There were a couple of like there were a couple of security guys.
And the I'm gonna say drag queen outside the club.
Yeah.
Which that's an issue in and of itself in this film. It's not what New York looks like.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it feels like a lot of, especially like the amount of background characters and the way a lot of people were interacting. It almost feels like they were designed to match the foreground so as not to create a breaking of the image, almost. Despite the fact it feels like the breaking of the image should be the point here.
And they're very I think the whole point of this film is that it's all a facade. It's not just him. They're all a facade. But they're very, and I say this with, you should hear the disdain dripping from my tone. They're very first class.
Yeah.
Like, these are the people whose grandparents like rode first class on the Titanic. Like, that's the vibe of them.
Yeah. Well, Bateman's, it's mentioned that Bateman is the son of the president.
Yeah, the son of the president of the company. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to talk about sons of presidents who seem like they could be serial killers. And I'm not talking about the current president. Just, I'm going to leave that one hanging.
I don't know what you could possibly be referring to. Yeah, it's
and seeing his quote unquote work activities, you get the
Daddy's
feeling,
little rich boy.
Yeah, that he got his position from nepotism.
Duh. Do we ever actually see him do any work?
No.
We see him pretend to do work.
Yeah.
Pretending to be on the phone to someone while giving them tips on what shirt to wear with what suit is not work.
He did pick up a pen at one point when someone walked in the room. Oh, no, it was a crossword, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was doing a crossword.
So, no, I don't know that he actually did.
Yeah. Which, again, does not even help to justify the level of incompetence of his killings. He had plenty of time to plan them properly.
Well,
I have thoughts. Yeah, about we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
It was so. Well, we will
to closely paraphrase or to quote. I'm hedging my accuracy here. Another movie that starred, another movie that starred Christian Bale. I'm like a dog chasing cars. I wouldn't know what to do with one if I caught him.
Yeah. No, Bateman was doing a crossword in the movie, Mark Caesar. Yeah. But yes, don't put Mark Caesar's comment up because Mark Caesar has said the name of the unspeakable person whose name we do not speak. But yes, tell me you haven't looked at that person's son and thought, I don't want to meet you down a dark alley.
Who is very swiftly diving ever deeper into a legal shit show.
Let's hope he can't swim. Right. Okay, so I will point out as well, we are hopping all over this movie as we're talking, and I think we're doing that because this movie hops all over this movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This movie's just...
It's very, like, there's a clear narrative, but it feels very, this, then this, then this, then this. Feels very disjointed.
Yeah. It's like that montage from The Goodfellas where he's hopped up on coke, but for 2 hours. That's what's going on in this movie.
It feels like either they were making a stylistic choice to try and make it difficult to sink into the film, or the film just suffered from slideshow-itis.
Bit of both.
Now, I can't... Now, because these films came out so close to each other, I can't say that they were emulating Fight Club, but it feels like they were emulating Fight Club, but Fight Club literally came out the year before.
But again, Fight Club's based on an earlier novel as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, look, I think what we're taking from is that the 90s were a really rough few years.
Yeah.
Poor Patrick Bateman's having a really rough week.
No, it's a really rough year.
Yeah.
It feels really like a week, but if you pay attention, you notice the events are stretched out over a year, at least.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, you do. And again, it does play with speeding up and slowing down time a lot.
Yeah.
It's just, the whole film is... Either the filmmakers are way cleverer than I'm giving them credit for, or I'm giving them way too much credit. And
yeah, it's like either they were emulating, Bateman's descent into madness, for the viewer to experience as well, in which they are way more clever than you're giving them credit for, or they're just that incompetent.
They're just that incompetent that I'm giving them too much credit.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about...
Might be a bit of both, honestly.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about the business card scene, because that's iconic, is that scene.
I'm just going to blink this banner.
Yeah.
To emphasize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pure hierarchy. It's a pissing contest. The things they say have no bearing whatsoever on the actual... what the cards actually look like.
Yeah.
Like font names that don't exist, typesets that are just blatantly incorrect, descriptions that just do not match what they're holding.
They look nearly identical.
Yeah. It's incongruous in how ridiculously stupid some of the things they say in this scene are relative to what they mean.
Yeah. And of course, everyone's, having a laugh, just showing their business cards.
But it's not just having a laugh and showing their business cards, is it?
Well, so, they're flashing their, sense of style. But one, Patrick is taking it a lot more seriously than everyone else.
I don't think he is. And that's what's interesting. Because the reason they're flashing their business cards is to show off their position in the company. To show
And
off
they're
their
all
clothes.
vice president.
Yeah. And it's that's establishing the pecking order in the group.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's winning until he sees the last one.
Yeah.
And that's why it hits him so hard.
And that's why it's like, okay, Paul's got to die.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to compare him to Chilton from last week.
Yeah.
He's trying too hard to fit what he perceives is... He's trying too hard to be classy, basically.
Yeah.
Like, to some people, being classy just comes naturally. I'm not one of them. So I don't pretend to be.
I don't think anyone here is except maybe Chaos.
Chaos is capable of class.
I think I'd have to try, but I could maybe get away with it.
Yeah, you could pull it off. Whereas if I tried to dress up really classy and go to a posh, like, charity do dinner and talk like I'm not from the arsehole of Bradford,
Yeah.
you'd spot it a mile off because I'd do something stupid like use the wrong fork, or I'd pick something up with my fingers, or I'd do something.
And
like I couldn't even fake it.
And Noodles see me dress nice. I go stiff and I go stiff. Not in a fun way, in a military way.
Yeah, you go, shit, Sergeant's coming.
Yeah.
Shit, Sergeant's bringing Colonel, and I need to finish this PowerPoint. That's what you do.
Yeah. It basically turns into either uniform inspection or fundy trauma.
Yeah. So the only 2 times in your life you've ever worn a suit were in the army and at church.
Yeah.
And it shows. Believe me, it shows.
Yeah.
So yeah, none of us are classy, but we don't try to be because we know it would come off as desperate and problematic if we tried to be what we're not. Whereas he is, you get that vibe, and characters like this really, I think I hate characters who do this more than I hate the actual villains in a lot of things. They're always like the grubby little villain's skivvy who's trying to, live up to the reputation or whatever. And it annoys me. It's really fake, and it's really uncomfortable to watch because it is cringe. It's like people who use,
I think, because
$10 words when a $1.50 will do.
Yeah, I sometimes, I'm one of those neurodivergent people that can get like physical pain from secondhand embarrassment being too bad.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of scenes in this film where I was like, ow.
Yeah. It's like if you've ever had a conversation with someone on Twitter, you can always spot the people who are not actually academics because they talk like they swallowed an ancient Greek dictionary.
Yeah.
And it's like, whereas an average academic's still typing like it's 2003 on a Nokia.
Yeah.
There's a difference. It's all about confidence and the projection of confidence and how people cover up when they don't have confidence.
So we're talking about the music lectures.
Yes. Let's talk about those.
And
I always knew that anyone who liked Phil Collins would be a serial killer.
hey, I like Phil Collins.
Oh shit! Help! To be fair, I don't mind some of his stuff either, but yeah.
Also, to be fair, I first got into Phil Collins through the Tarzan soundtrack.
This is valid. Also, hands up, Supernatural ruined me. I now cannot ever listen to Krista Berg again. Because I hear the song Lady in Red, I immediately get a mental image of like Dean Winchester slow dancing with an alien.
Yeah.
It was a formative thing. I can't help it. What was the message I sent you, Ring? What were my exact words?
Hold on, I'll pull it up.
Because after about the second lecture on music, I messaged Ring.
Let's see. Well, first was, geez, this guy intellectualizing music is driving me psycho.
And then it was
I didn't think I could hate Whitney Houston any more than I already did, but right before that I messaged you saying, please tell me I don't sound like that when I talk about animation.
Yeah. No, you don't sound like that because you have something resembling modulation. You modulate your tone moves. It's not.
Yeah. But yeah, you said you have real passion. You're not just reeling off facts and critic sound bites you found in the New York Times.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
The intellectualization of art and music. And I say this fully aware that that's exactly what the fuck we're doing here, but with movies.
Yeah.
Annoys the hell out of me.
Well,
at least we're self-aware about it.
Well,
yeah.
I wouldn't like there's a difference between what we're doing and what Bateman was doing.
Oh yeah. No, we're not intellectualizing it and like just obeying the critics.
Where we're advocating for media literacy and analyzing things yourself.
Yeah. Even if you get it wrong, it's still fun to try. Whereas he's so afraid of getting it wrong that he just copies. It's clearly like Red Rolling Stone or the New York Times or something to get his sound bites from. Like, he definitely, the way he talks about music, he does it in the tone of a Guardian op-ed writer.
Yeah, like, also, he's talking about, about Huey Lewis, Whitney Houston, and Phil Collins, the way an opera snob talks about opera.
Hey!
You're not an opera snob. You're an opera addict.
Yes. I will get you to do some opera.
There's a difference between enthusiast and snob.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the difference. It's like, when you talk to a teenager about like 70s music or 80s music, and they've learned all the facts, and they know every drummer who was ever in Pink Floyd and every album by that singer, and they know like the make and model of guitar that Jimi Hendrix used at that one show in like Rio de Janeiro in 1973 or something. And you're just like, calm down, it's music.
Yeah.
You're supposed to enjoy it. It's like
or like when you get me onto
there's a difference between
book history.
Yeah, but when you care about that stuff, I don't mean that. I mean like that they're trying too hard to show that they love it. It's the same attitude that makes nerd guys give women pop culture quizzes when we try and get into nerd spaces.
Yeah.
It's that attitude.
So,
like, I can't wear an AC/DC.
That's actually the analogy I was about to use.
Yeah, so Oh yeah. So what you're saying is he's basically gatekeeping and proving himself
Yes.
simultaneously.
Yes. And it's really irritating because him talking that way about music is like a toddler telling me why the Stegosaurus is the best of all the dinosaurs. I don't give a shit. Like, it's pretty. I want to pet it, but I will die. This is what I care about. I don't give a shit how many spikes it's got or whether it preferred blueberries or strawberries. I just know I'm going to die trying to pet something I shouldn't. We should do Jurassic Park at some point. I've never watched that all the way through either.
Really?
Yeah. But, like, there's a difference between loving something and, yes, you want to know everything about it, but it's the way. Look, there's a difference. Look, I've got friends who info dump. I info dump. We're all on the spectrum. It's a thing we do.
Yeah.
But when we do it, we're not doing it for our own self-aggrandizement. It's not about making ourselves look clever when we do it. It's about, look at this awesome thing I love. I want you to know all the things because I know all the things. I look, this is awesome. That is not what he was doing. What he was doing was, look at me. I'm so clever.
And also, once again, and he's always doing it right before he kills someone.
And he only ever does it to women.
Nope.
No, because even when he did the Hugh Louis one to Paul, the way he does it is different. He doesn't lecture him. He asks him a question and then builds on it. It's different, but it's not. It's not the same.
Well, yeah, true. Because with the women, he's exercising his power over them. With Paul, he's stealing Paul's power.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the difference as well. Because it is, again, it's a power play.
Yeah.
And this is why, like, I have said to people when I've been at, like, something, or when I've been talking to someone and someone's tried to, like, do that to me, it is invariably a cis guy. It just is. I don't know if he's, I don't really care if he's straight, but it invariably it's a guy, and invariably I shut it down with the words, yes, I know you've got your dick in your hand. Can you stop measuring it now? Because that's what's going on. It's a dick measuring contest. And it's like, I don't give a shit. You don't. If your ego is boosted by making me feel stupid and unwelcome in a place I thought I could be happy, you're a dick. And I'm going to tell you you're a dick. And there is a line between that and come info dump at me. Like, I have friends on the spectrum and who will literally just like, can I info dump at you? I found this thing and it's my new fixation. I've got no one to talk to. Like, cool, come info dump. Info dump. I will listen and I will watch you squeal and wave your hands and have fun. That's not what he was doing.
Yeah.
And I love when my friends do that. So please do that, because that's how I learn about 80% of everything I know.
So that being said, I can think of one glaring exception to both of those info dump scenarios.
Go on.
Is if anyone talks about deep Tolkien lore, because any question about deep Tolkien lore will result in an info dump, because you have to info dump to answer that question.
Yes, but the fact that you know that tells me that that's your fixation, so that's fine. Like, do neurotypical people know deep Tolkien lore? Serious question. Do neurotypical people know or care about deep Tolkien lore?
Yeah, I'm not sure if anyone who's neurotypical hasn't done anything other than watch the Peter Jackson movies or maybe read Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Okay, so do you see the difference?
I don't know that neurotypical people have hobbies, honestly, sometimes.
Yeah.
Neurotypical people are weird. Who was it who said to me, neurotypical people don't feel empathy?
Yeah.
Or don't feel feelings the way other people feel feelings. I'm just like, that's fake. I think it was you, Kate, wasn't it?
I made a comment about, I think I read a thing on how they feel empathy differently. So they don't feel it in the same way we do.
Yeah, that sounds fake.
As a last...
And it's like...
You know, as a cap off tip at the end of this tangent, if you ever hear the phrase, it begins with the music of the Ainur, get a comfy seat and get and just get like the biggest bucket of popcorn. You're gonna be there definitely. A while.
I don't know what that means, but I appreciate the advice. Thank you. I'm sure one day I will learn what that means after we've lived together several months and you've managed to corner me one day after work. But I don't know what that means yet, and I feel like I should be grateful for that fact, so thank you.
I feel like that's more of a weekend job than an evening job.
Yeah.
Is that a long weekend job? Is that like the Labor Day weekend? Have you got that like set out for us 1 week Labor Day weekend?
Basically, you're gonna have to have a big block of time if you ask me anything about Rings of Power.
I haven't watched it yet because I'm planning on binging it once it all comes out. So
first season's already just finished.
Cool. I can binge that like next weekend or the weekend, whatever weekend I don't have the opera. Yeah. Anyway, the guys manipulate. Okay, I don't know if anyone's been watching my Twitter feed, but I have personally had to deal with a narcissist over the last couple of weeks. And they're not as clever as they think they are. Like, I am actively offended by how clever some narcissists think they are compared to what they actually are.
Yeah.
This guy definitely offends me. Like, I feel like my intelligence is being insulted by how stupid this man is in his manipulations. Like, she asks you a question that you don't want to answer, so you, like, distract her with a kiss. Or you try and distract people, and it's like with the detective.
Yeah.
That's just so blatant. Trying to distract the guy and pretending you didn't hear what he said or didn't remember what he said.
And
it's just
so
yeah.
The like the first time with the two hookers, or rather the hooker and the escort. Like I thought he was being clever and setting up like an alibi sort of thing. You know, oh, Paul isn't dead. He just, you know, or you know, Paul just went on a bender. You know, it's like no, he's just going off on a I'm Paul, I am powerful power trip.
Yeah, it's like he's nowhere near as clever as he could be if he stopped and thought about it for 10 seconds. Because I've got here, high class versus low rent call girls, and he likes that dichotomy. Which is really funny when he talks about the Yale thing.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we'll come back to because there's an entire conversation there. But did you notice when he had the hookers, rent girls, whores, whatever you want to call them, I don't know what the politically correct term is anymore. The breakfast he had, fig, cherries, all red food. Or food that looked red on camera. Like the fig like the inside of the fig had been opened up and foods known to be like historically known to be aphrodisiacs. Don't replace your Viagra with them, folks. But also foods. I think there was a pomegranate on the plate as well, or a bit of pomegranate
No,
seed.
I mean, if you are like maybe currently in the Senate, do that, because we don't need you inflicting yourself on women anymore.
Yeah, no, but all foods that have historically been seen to be aphrodisiacs, but have also been conflated with death or figures of death.
Yeah.
The fig. Historians' best guess is that actually the apple in the Garden of Eden was a fig. That's an entirely different conversation, but yeah. You just take that as given for there. There's you can Google it. Pomegranate is Persephone.
Yep.
And I don't know, cherries are like just red blood. Yeah, but again, there's the cherry, the quote unquote the popping of a cherry.
Cherry pits are poisonous.
Yeah, popping the cherry.
Cherry pits are poisonous. So there's a lot of, again, it's this thing of everyone believes, and there is some evidence for it, that a lot of serial killers, they get off on it.
Yeah.
They get off on the power, they get off on the killing, they get off on whatever aspect of it. And that, to me, actually this is why I wonder if I'm not giving the film creators enough credit. Because to have that specific plate laid out the way it was,
yeah,
that's clever. That's a flash of genius right there in that shot.
Yeah.
Especially as he's doing like sit-ups in front of a TV with someone screaming on the TV.
Yeah.
Like that entire bit there is just a flash of genius.
I think it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre that's playing on the TV.
I have no idea.
I'm only guessing because there was a guy swinging a chainsaw.
Yeah. But that was very clever. And
there were in this film moments that felt clever. Like when he went and made a phone call pretending to make a trip to England as the other guy.
Yeah, I think he was recording a voice. He was recording the.
Yeah, he was recording.
We're too young to remember these things, but they were the precursor to your voicemail chaos. There were little machines that sat in the corner that you hated because they blinked at you if someone had called when you weren't in. They were annoying, and they never worked properly.
Yeah.
See, funnily enough, I do remember having one of those.
Did you buy it in a museum gift shop?
No, my mum happened to have one when I was little.
I mean,
I need to realign how old I think you are.
It was probably like a digital one, or as opposed to the tape deck shown in the movie.
Yeah, but they were annoying as all hell, and generally, like, I can imagine why someone who had to live with one of those things would eventually become a serial killer. That would be a valid, like, driving factor.
Plea of madness in court. I held one of these in my house.
Also,
like if one of those, and also those old mobile phones, those old bricks.
Also, in regards to his on-screen exercise routine, they did insert female gaze comment here for you. But
I didn't find his exercise routine that geared towards the female gaze.
Oh, but Well, I mean, it's Christian Bale doing crunches.
Mm. So they
But-
probably thought it was for the female gaze, but
Yeah, but they also included probably the best stretch I've ever experienced in any exercise routine.
the Pilates one, because there's a bit where he's doing Pilates on the floor.
So it's the one where he it's called the single leg over, basically where you lay back and you bring one leg over the other.
Yeah, that's what I call Pilates, because
Yeah.
that's also a thing in Pilates. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will point out as well, his exercise routine is not the exercise routine of a bodybuilder. Like his exercise style is for strength, not for aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, aside from 1,000 crunches every day, because what the fuck, dude?
That
I
is
did 1,000 crunches in my life.
that is one. Like I say this as someone who had to do sit-ups daily for my job. That is ridiculous.
Give us an average, okay? Now you were not infantry.
Yeah.
But you were military.
Yes.
And you were active duty and you were deployed.
Yes.
What would a morning workout look like in that scenario? Presuming you're already within weight regs and you don't have a bastard sergeant picking on you.
Oh, okay. Well, so most of the time, because it's fucking Fort Campbell, it was warm up with about a few stretches, like 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups / crunches, and then just run.
Right. 10 crunches
But
versus
now in regards to the PT test, where the point is you do as many sit-ups, which are different than crunches and are technically more strenuous because there's a greater range of motion.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to do as many as you can within a minute. I've taught, like, my record, if I remember off the top of my head, is like about 70
in a minute.
in a minute.
Okay.
Now you can do more crunches, quicker than sit-ups, because you're just kind of
you're not going all the way up or all the way back.
But that being said, crunches burn. Like maybe, like, if you were specifically working on your core, I'd say maybe like high double digits is your max
in a minute. Okay.
No, in a routine.
Okay. So what we're basically saying is this guy's doing
this guy has got a Saitama exercise routine for you kids out there that watch the animes and whatnot.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
And I only know this because of cultural osmosis and memes, but you've heard of One Punch Man. It's the anime about this. It's the anime about the superhero that can defeat every enemy with just one punch.
Look, I'm officially old enough in fandom that I get teenagers telling me to go do my taxes. I don't know. I don't know.
But it's like, but it's basically a satire of shonen animes, and literally all I'm only speaking of what I know through meme osmosis. But his routine is 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and like a 100 squats and a 10-mile run every single day. Which is and that's the joke, is because that's ridiculous. Like, no one can do that.
And this guy claims to be doing 10 times more.
Well, yeah, 1,000, yeah.
Like, even if you expect that he's doing that over the course of an hour.
Yeah.
Which you would need a 5-minute rest between 100 reps of crunches.
Yeah, and also working your core, you can't just do crunches.
Yeah, no, you can't. They'll tell you can, but anyone who tells you that is trying to sell you something, don't buy it. It doesn't work.
Yeah, or is setting up, by setting up to sell you back braces.
Mm-hmm. Because you will, yeah.
Yeah, you're because like, if you only do one kind of core exercise during your core routine, you're just working one group of muscles and neglecting the rest. Well, you're overworking one group of muscles and neglecting the rest.
Which means the rest are going to be strained trying to take the pressure that these ones can't take because you've worked them too hard. And when these ones get stronger, the other ones progressively get weaker as these ones take more pressure on.
Yeah.
But it's all about balance. Anyone who tells you there's an exercise that can make your waist thinner or your legs less chunky or get rid of your bingo wings or whatever the fuck else is a liar. That's not how weight loss works. That's not how toning works. That's not how the body works. I have a bee in my bonnet about that.
Yeah.
Because, we were talking about that. Now I want to, again, segue.
Yeah.
The guy's ridiculous. He does ridiculous things. I want to talk about this conversation that we're all having about women with a good personality. Look,
yes,
I accept that this movie is based in the 80s and they're yuppies and they're dicks.
Yeah.
But dude, you're dating Elle Woods and she works for the ACLU. How the fuck are you saying any of that with a straight face?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, it wasn't Patrick Bateman that, Patrick Bateman's only contribution to that conversation was
a Ted Bundy comment.
Yeah.
But even still, like, he's proven he's not afraid to call his mates out and he sat and listened to that.
Yeah.
I have opinions. Yes. When girls are socialized as teenagers, those of us who were not conventionally attractive were encouraged to do more academic pursuits. We're encouraged to develop the ability to string a conversation together. Just because a woman is clever doesn't mean that she's ugly. It is entirely possible to be both beautiful and intelligent. You tend to find that in women who were told they were ugly.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who I'm like, You shouldn't know. You should have spent way more time as a teenager staring at a mirror than you clearly did. Like that's a stereotype to an extent that plays out. Like, teenagers are narcissists, and if you're pretty as a teenager, you're going to spend a lot of time in front of a mirror. You just are. If you're not, then you're not. And therefore, you're going to spend a lot of time staring at books instead. But to suggest as a blanket statement that the only reason women do anything or develop any talent, skill, or intelligence is because we're ugly.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, bud, you ain't exactly an oil painting.
Yeah.
And secondly, you tend to find that women who have gone down that route aren't all that interested in aesthetics anyway.
Yeah.
Like, as a general rule, everyone likes to feel beautiful. Everyone likes to feel pretty. But as a general rule, people who are more interested in other things than aesthetics aren't just more interested in those things because they themselves don't meet the criteria.
Yeah.
Like, I know some absolutely beautiful people. Like, full on beautiful. You've all seen Ring when Ring's clean shaven and put together, right? You've all seen Chaos. I know so many people. Even Scummer scrubs up fairly well. I say that with him in the chat. That wasn't a backhanded compliment, but he's not here, so. Yeah. But, people are capable of looking good and also being intelligent.
Yeah.
You can coast on good looks. We had an entire conversation about how you can get away with being a serial killer by having the right color eyes and hair.
Yeah.
But charisma and good looks only gets you so far. And good looks fade. And if there's no personality behind them, that makes for a very boring life after you're about 25.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm 31 and apparently you still find me stunning.
I mean, you are stunning. Have you looked at yourself recently? I'm allowed to say that I'm married to them. But there's always time to go back and learn how to fix your hair, fix your makeup, and wear the right clothes.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to do it the other way around.
Yeah.
Because once you're cast in that mold as the bimbo, it's really hard to break out of it.
And of course, there's the whole blatant misogyny of there are no girls with good personalities.
Now, what is a good personality anyway? Because according to these guys, a good personality is, as I've heard it put more than once, a whore in the bedroom and a mother in the kitchen.
Well, I mean, nothing's more 80s than pining after that supposed 50s ideal.
Yeah. And it is that very much. They want trophy wives. They don't want partners. They want trophy wives. They want fuck toys.
Yeah.
And they're all dicks and they're all psychopaths because they clearly don't have any empathy for other human beings. And I think that's what this scene was getting at.
Yeah.
It was pointing out that he fits in with these people and he doesn't have to hide who he actively, he hears what they have to say and he feels comfortable enough to make the Ted Bundy comment.
Yeah.
He fits in with this group. And this group, there's clearly unspoken rules about what you can say and what you can't.
Yeah.
But he doesn't grasp that. again with this could be any number of disorders or like learning disabilities or issues. But the fact that he felt comfortable bringing up the name of a very famous serial killer as part of that says a lot about what they were saying.
Yeah. Well, and also
he was either very confident they wouldn't know or knew he'd get away with it.
Or he was confident enough in the conversation that was going on that he didn't think it would be out of place.
Yeah. And also it is interesting that every time he brings up like a serial, because he does it a couple times, they're like, who's that?
Yeah. It's like it's clearly something he's interested in that they're not. And I think that's an interesting commentary on the nature of toxic masculinity and the dangers of it.
Yeah.
Because it's all well and good saying, oh, boys will be boys, it's just locker room talk, it's, all this, that, and the other. But what this film shows really well is how thin that line is from women, there's no such thing as a woman with a good personality, to, oh, there's a man who fantasizes about putting the women's heads on sticks.
Yeah.
Really, really good at showing that line. And what made the silence in that conversation uncomfortable?
Though now that I think about it, it wasn't Bundy that was mentioned in that scene. It was a different one.
It was a different one, but yeah.
Yeah, because he brought up Bundy when he was talking, when he had his secretary out of his apartment.
Yeah. Whoever he brought up, anyway.
Yeah.
And the point is that there is a very fine line there. And that the culture of it allows for people like him to exist within it. And I'm anti-censorship, but there is a point to be made that behavior like that, cultures like that, allow people like this character in real life to believe that they are within the realms of normal.
Yeah.
That they are within the realms of acceptable. And look, you can be obsessed with horror, gore, crime, whatever, and be a perfectly well-adjusted human being.
Yeah.
I'm not saying start side-eyeing your friends who watch true crime podcasts. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when that is part of a wider culture that dismisses and minimizes the very real inability to differentiate between humor and reality, fiction and reality, that's when it's going to become a problem. And that's why media literacy is so important, so people can learn that difference.
Yeah.
Because it's harder for some people than others to learn it, and that's fair. But that doesn't justify not learning it.
Yeah, just because, a graphic novel depicts horrible things doesn't mean you shouldn't teach it as literature. Tennessee.
Yes. But the point of, like, the reason it's funny to see those guys joking about women and passing those nasty comments is A, because we look at it and we think, do men really talk like that? That's ridiculous.
Also, haha, 80s, go Burr.
Yeah. But it's also funny because there's just enough truth in what they're saying because of the way the culture is geared towards teaching girls at a young age that you're either clever or brainy, pick one. Like, you're either smart or sexy, pick one.
Yeah.
Like, that was something like at 6, 7 years old, girls were being told, well, you can either play with the dollies or you can look at this book. Like, I'm 6 years old. I don't care. Like, but what they are doing, if you take it as a commentary on the culture they are in, it's funny.
Yeah.
Because it's almost a satire of that culture. The problem is that kind of behaviour is still prevalent and is still common and is still broadly accepted. At least pre-Me Too movement.
Yeah.
And I would say even
political figure that was alluded to and will not be named in this stream, and certain comments about locker room talk.
Yeah. And what was it? You grab them by the pussy?
Yeah.
That phrase is going to haunt me. Like, yeah. I'll be old and like slightly senile, and I'll be repeating that phrase and shuddering, and no one will understand why. But
I was there 3,000 years ago.
You and that man, you don't know. But yeah, no, it is. It's we all need a cultural therapy session on the back of that. Hopefully, once he's indicted and it's all sorted out, we can do that. But there's a lot of, and I don't know, Chaos, I want to ask your opinion on this because you're the younger person. You're sort of the generation after us. Could you imagine a world where those kind of conversations they were having, and not just the ones about women, but the way he behaved towards women, the AIDS conversations, could you imagine a world where that's not a caricature of a town?
I'm a bit of a weird person to ask because yes, but I also grew up in a very culty environment where with the church I grew up in, while it wasn't okay to say any of those things directly, you could absolutely imply all of them and get away with it.
Yeah, mood and a half.
So I can...
Yeah. Go on.
I can totally imagine a world where that generalizes to everybody and people just interact like that, but I don't think most people my age could.
Yeah, because I grew up in a culture where those comments would not have been out of place. And I'm talking about hearing my own family discuss women in those terms in front of their own female relatives.
Yeah.
Although my family are entirely dysfunctional and I'm still in therapy, yeah. They owe me a lot of money for therapy bills. Yeah, there are dysfunctional cultures where that exists. I think this film is very interesting because it felt so 80s. Like, it looked like the 80s. It was clearly based in the 80s.
Yeah.
But holy shit, if the bigotry didn't just go fuck. Like, it went hard. And it didn't... Like, we have this tendency, like, when we make modern films, and this is a relatively modern film, it's only 20-year-old.
Yeah.
We have this tendency to tone down the bigotry of the past.
Yeah. So
we have this tendency to make films about slave plantations with trigger warnings at the beginning, or for headlines to be made because Leonardo DiCaprio said what in a movie where he was a slave owner? Well, what did you expect him to call them? Old Sport? Wrong franchise. Like, we get really precious about it as a culture because we don't like being faced with who we were as a culture, broadly. Broadly.
And we're gonna ban
Yeah,
CRT.
British people. Yeah, British people
Yeah.
broadly either like Empire or don't want to talk about it.
Yes, broadly. And those of us who can't stand it and also want to learn more about it then get done for because there's nowhere to go to learn. But this film is so in your face with the blatant bigotry on all sides, and no one is safe from this bigotry. Like everyone is a target.
And
like I'm surprised there weren't blonde jokes in there at some point.
I mean,
like obvious blonde jokes,
kinda
not
was.
visual ones.
yeah, I mean there was like a white supremacy nod when he's ordering the escort, and he explicitly asks for a blonde, and she has to be really blonde.
Yeah. And he notices that she's more redhead than blonde.
Yeah.
Also,
you know, I think this is the only depiction I've seen of gay panic actually saving someone's life.
Yeah. Which is weird. Like his gay panic moment stopping him from killing the guy is just that was, it's almost, again, that's another moment that you look at and you just want to laugh because it's like the fuck. But that's the one thing this film does really well. It's really honest about how recent the past is.
Yeah.
But B, how bigoted the past is.
Yeah.
It's like the only character who speaks in this movie who's not a straight cis white guy is the black homeless man.
Whose only purpose is to be blatantly insulted to his face and then murdered by Patrick Bateman.
Yeah. And the way he's played, he comes across as not the sharpest spoon in the shed. Let's put it that way. And it's uncomfortable. Because there was a time when all of this bigotry was acceptable, where you wouldn't have even noticed it watching this film. And the scary bit is, looking back, I don't know. Okay, I was very young when this film came out. I was not even a teenager yet. But I don't know, had I seen this film at that age, that I would have noticed half of the bigotry in it, because it was just how people thought.
Yeah.
And this is one of those films that does hit you round the head with how far we've come so fast.
Yeah.
Like, if you think this film came out in 2000, gay marriage in America was what, 2008, 2009?
Yep, 2008.
8 years. From a film based in the 80s with gay panic and a joke that I'm going to get into in a moment that is the best joke about the AIDS crisis I've ever heard, full stop, the end.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to make a joke about the AIDS crisis, folks, so you know it's a good one. But to go from that, where gay bars don't have toilets, they have stalls for you to do coke, and to legalize love wins in 8 years. Damn. But yes, that joke. They're in the gay bar. The comments being passed as they're in the queue for the loos. Unisex loos, by the way. Do you notice they're all in the same queue, men and women?
Yeah.
Just point that out. It's not a new idea, folks. The comments passed. Oh, if you can catch AIDS, maybe you can catch diabetes, dementia, and dyslexia.
Yeah.
Which there was a moment in history where that was a genuine fear because no one knew what AIDS was.
Yeah.
Which immediately dates when this film's supposed to be based to the early 80s. Like mid-80s at a push. But the line that follows it, I want that on a t-shirt. I want that line on a t-shirt. And I think I even sent it to you. I don't think dyslexia is a virus. That's brilliant to me. That is cool. Peak humor. That's as funny as this film gets.
So, which means the timeline for this movie might actually be over a period of years rather than a period of 1 year because of how it ends. And I really like the ending.
Yeah.
Because
before we get to the ending, let's talk about the third act breakdown.
Yeah.
You know how we've been saying, or we said right at the start, the pacing of this movie was fucked?
Yeah.
The pacing of this movie was fucked. But also, the pacing of this entire stream has been fucked and disjointed, because that's what the movie's like.
So, honestly, I do feel that it was a purposeful decision.
Yes. But I think it's designed to unsettle you. It's designed to catch you off guard.
And
it's designed to make you go, fuck, that escalated quickly.
And it's also designed to immerse you into Bateman's spiral of madness.
Yes. It's very, as I said earlier, Goodfellas, the Coke montage. That's the third act breakdown going on here.
Yeah.
If you've seen the Goodfellas Coke montage, replace the meatballs with a woman's brain and all the driving with running around with a chainsaw, and it's pretty much the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should do Goodfellas eventually. I know it's on Scummer's list as well.
Yeah.
It's
we were gonna do it during Mob Month, but I lost internet during Mob Month.
There's a deep poetic irony in that statement that I'm going to ignore and move on. But yeah, pacing all off. The way he breaks up with Evelyn is, it's like they're talking different languages. It's like they're not even in the same room. And she's desperately trying to cling on to this image. And I do love, he's meant to be the psychopath in the story, but she's the one who is being broken up with by a guy she's engaged to, presumably adores and loves. And her first thought is, but your friends are my friends and it would be impractical. Like, sweetie, that's just so 80s yuppie culture.
And
it's also just so...
And he replies with, you can have them.
Yeah, it's just so cold. And if are straight people okay? Are you okay? Like, that's not what love's supposed to look like, right? Are you okay?
Yeah.
And he's drawing on the tablecloth and she's pretending not to see it because she doesn't want to look. And that's what everyone around him does. They pretend not to see this third act breakdown.
Yeah.
And they turn away from him at a time when he really should be being looked at. And it's just... I mean, a plot doesn't have to be well written, well plotted, or well structured to be a plot and to resemble real life. It probably works better that it lacks all of those things.
Yeah.
Because that looks more like a psychotic breakdown.
Yeah. And, he goes out to get cash from the ATM, which means he's oh boy, here I go killing again.
Yeah. And and I will say, most people who have a mental break, again, are not likely to be violent.
Yeah.
Except in very specific situations. Obviously, don't put yourself at risk, but don't go assuming that everyone who's had a mental breakdown or an emotional break or who has burnout or whatever is going to go on a killing spree. They're not.
Yeah.
And
in
fact, the vast majority of people who have a mental breakdown, you won't even notice.
And also, if it does turn violent, if a mental breakdown does turn violent, it's probably more likely going to be violence directed inward rather than outward.
Yes, they're far more likely to hurt themselves than other people. This goes for people with depression, with trauma.
So
people don't.
Belated trigger warning. Sorry.
Yes, belated trigger warning for that comment, but it's true and it's right because we've all seen it. A few years ago, a plane got hijacked or crashed or some shit, and they blamed the co-pilot's depression for why he did it.
Yeah.
Depression doesn't turn you into a mass murderer. I promise it doesn't. Not on its own. That's just a fundamental lack of understanding.
No. Otherwise, most people my age would be serial killers.
And of course, so he goes to get money, and he almost does the absolute worst thing we've seen him do in the movie.
Yeah. I should point out, throughout this movie, I was messaging Ring like my random thoughts and reactions.
Yeah.
And I had not made any comment about any of the murders up until this point. Like, I had nothing to say about them. They were just killings.
Well, and even so, also to preface this, when we see him stab the whole homeless man, I was like, oh, okay, he stabs the homeless man, but then he kicks the dog. What kind of a monster kicks the dog?
Yeah, it's a fucking monster. And it's like, what did the dog do to you? It was just there. Like, yeah. But again, there is a very telling point in that he picked a black, older, homeless man. He picks a gay man to target. He picks people who are in some way not the center of society and who he has power over. It's all power. It's what serial killers do. It's not about sex. It's not about love or lust or whatever else they'll tell you. It's about power. And sometimes it's about the fact that they desperately needed help when they couldn't get it.
But anyways, he is about to almost do the worst thing we've seen him do in the movie, and that includes kicking the dog.
Yes. So he looks down at the ATM, and I heard him say, "Here, kitty, kitty," and I just messaged Ring, and my visceral gut reaction, and I think I actually said it out loud as well, to an empty apartment, I might add.
Yeah.
No, you bastard, leave the kitty alone.
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure if you saw it, but on the ATM it says, "Feed me the stray cat."
Yeah. Which is one of my arguments for a potential reading of this movie that I'm saving to the end.
Yeah.
Because we'll talk.
Yes, I had a similar thought with that, I think.
Yes.
But so he picks up the kitty.
And the little old lady died protecting the kitty. Well, she wasn't a little old lady. She was fairly sturdy. Like, she was not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although in fairness, she did stop the cat.
She was well dressed in the furs as well, wasn't she?
Yeah.
She was like proper.
Oh yeah.
Which is kind of ironic that she effectively ends up giving her life for a kitty.
Yeah. But I will point out, she looks like she's just left the opera.
Yeah.
Like, a woman of that age and that apparent class, given the way she's dressed, which is 98% of the time how you can tell what class someone is, it's how they're dressed.
Yeah.
Why is she walking alone?
Yeah.
Like, she has to be the nicest and the least deserving of murder character in this movie.
Yeah.
Except maybe his girlfriend. Maybe. But there's still something about her that, like, But why is she walking, like, look, as an AFAB person, I don't care how desperately I need money.
Yeah.
I am not walking down a street that's a row of banks that late at night on my own, dressed like that. Because you know what happens when you walk down a street full of banks that late at night, dressed like that? You get what that woman got.
Yeah.
And then people ask what you were wearing and if you deserved it.
And
That was just an utter lack of... I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely applaud her for trying to protect the kiddie.
Yeah.
But...
yeah, it's like least deserving of being murdered, possibly stupidest.
And also...
Do you know what she is? Channel punching bag. Do you know what she is? She's the Gryffindor of this movie.
Yes.
That's what she is. She's like, she means well. And she's clearly got a kind heart, possibly. But she's also crossed the line between brave and stupid.
Yeah. And also, so we go from the least deserving victim to possibly the most deserving victim.
Yeah. I'm just gonna Hollywood ammo.
Yeah.
Also, Hollywood shooter. How does a guy who works on fucking Wall Street have that good of a shot in the dark at those ranges with that gun?
Well, also, you know, the Michael Bay police car explosion.
Yeah, like that thing where he turns around and that is shot for shot the Joker walking up, like he was miscasting Batman. That's what I got from this movie.
I actually disagree.
Okay.
Because the thesis of the Dark Knight, trilogy, of course, is the thesis of most Batman media, which we really need to get away from, is that, Bruce Wayne is the mask and Batman is the real person, and Batman is also the outlet for Bruce Wayne's trauma. And Christopher Nolan really did, with the Dark Knight trilogy, which we are going to have to do sometime, hone in on, the fact that Bruce Wayne is the mask, and Christian Bale, as in American Psycho, does such a great job of telegraphing the fact that his personality is a mask to the audience. Meanwhile, with the Joker, there's no mask. It's just the Joker.
It's just the Joker. Yeah. But Christian Bale's creepy.
Now
In this movie,
I would,
Christian Bale is creepy.
I would say after watching American Psycho, Christian Bale would make a great Joker, but he would be the wrong choice for what Christopher Nolan was going for.
Yeah. No, he'd make a great Joker, but not necessarily in the franchise he was Batman in.
Yes.
Yes. That I can, yes. That's what I'm saying, but I don't know enough about Batman to have realized there's more than one franchise.
Yeah. and
more
this
than
is
one
the difference
franchise.
and this is the difference between lecturing and info dumping.
Yeah. But also you have to understand my experience of Batman is or being on buses seeing posters of it over the last few years, being aware that there's a Batman v Superman thing, and
We
that's
don't talk
basically
about
the goody. Yeah, we don't talk about that. And there was once a cartoon that I must have watched as a kid because I vaguely remember it, but I couldn't tell you jack all about anything that happened in it.
Oh, don't get me started on Batman the Animated Series.
That bad?
No, that good.
Okay, that good. That's probably why I remember bits of it then.
See, Commie Joker is still my favorite thing.
Yeah.
I will say that the Joker is actively one of the most frightening villains I've ever seen in any franchise anywhere. Like, give me Hannibal Lecter any day over that guy.
Yeah.
That guy is... And I'm pretty sure the Joker I have in my head is a movie Joker that I've picked up from seeing on Tumblr gift sets and things. With the scars and the...
Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's that Joker that's so frightening to me. But I'm not sure I want to find out more about him. There are very few fictional characters that legitimately frighten me.
Well, as they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stranger.
Yes, that one.
Yeah. Madness is like gravity. All you need is a little push.
Yes, that one.
Yeah, that's the Heath Ledger Joker.
Yeah, the one with the explosion and the arms out and the... Yes, that one. And the dressed as a Marine and with the face scar and yes.
Yep. That's Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight.
That one is terrifying to me. So terrifying I've never bothered to find out where it's from because I don't want to know. Because then I'll get curious and I'll go watch it and traumatize myself.
So basically I'm going to have wholesome gifts ready for you when we do the Dark Knight trilogy.
No, you're going to have to wait to do the Dark Knight trilogy until I'm with you so you can cuddle me while we watch it. Because I need somewhere to hide my face when I get frightened.
Yeah.
And your hair's long enough now, I can... but yes, this character's third act breakdown is brilliant, but probably not as... It's another... I'm going to say it again. I'm either giving the screenwriter way too much credit or not enough credit.
Yeah. Also...
And I can't tell which.
Also, for those of you rewatching this, or rather, for those of you who are going to rewatch this sometime in the future, add that to the drinking game.
Yeah, add that to the drinking game. How much credit do we give the screenwriters for how that montage left us feeling?
Yeah.
Because it was such an onslaught. We went from "don't kill the kitty, you monster" to "shit, he's shooting cops" to "shit, explosions" to "fuck" to bodies everywhere to
shit.
and it was so much all at once. And
to shit, he just shot the doorman and just went back and shot the janitor.
And to shit, he's so overwhelmed. I went all the way around a spinning door and went back to shoot something. Like my hands are blurring on the screen, and this is indicative.
Yes.
I just wow. I've seen some hella third act breakdowns. There's some great ones out there, but that was a journey. Like you could have played that at half speed, and it still would not have felt slow.
And then also, holy shit, he's gonna shoot another doorman. Oh wait, he's getting out a pen.
Yeah. And it's like it's boom, 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 and it fucks with your perception and it fucks with your expectations in a really interesting way. And
Also,
again, I can't tell if.
Also, thinking back on it, I think that was the same doorman that got shot just a few seconds before.
It does look like the same doorman, yeah, which is really weird.
Like
again,
that's
like the same lobby.
One of those scenes that I felt like repeated itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have opinions on all of that. That's my pin from earlier.
Yeah.
It's up there. It's flashing away. I know it's there.
Yeah.
It's, to put it in layman's terms, it's crazy. It's, you cannot watch that scene and feel sane watching it because so much happens, repeats. You don't know where you are. You don't know what time it is. You don't know what's going on, and it's disconcerting.
Yeah.
And it does get that. It gets your, like,
oh,
you
yeah,
see the way I've become
like,
animated talking about it. It gets your adrenaline going.
Yeah, it looks like he's breaking up like sometime during the sometime during the day, but when he's at the ATM, it's dark.
Yeah.
Out.
And then it's dark outside the lobby, but obviously the lobby's well lit. And then, and the use of light in it is very, because again, the light going from light to dark to light to dark to light to dark.
Yeah.
It's. You're epileptic. Did you get through it okay?
I'm not photosensitive.
That's probably why. But it does feel like that montage should come with an epilepsy warning. Not because flashing, but because of the changes. The regular changes in light just feel so in your face.
Yeah.
It feels like, it's like, those 80s movies where the CIA guy catches the Russian and tortures him by shining a light in his eyes?
Yeah.
It's like, it feels like that's what the movie makers are doing to the audience.
Yeah.
I think something I've just realized about this film as well that kind of goes with that is those scenes could totally have been non-chronological and I wouldn't have noticed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely would not have noticed the passage of time. I think I missed a lot of the passage of time in this movie because it's so disorientating.
Well, though
this whole film could happen in an afternoon and we wouldn't fucking know.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're paying attention to specific mentions of holidays and such.
Yeah. But even then, it's like, there's not a lot to go on, is there?
Yeah.
And it's just so much. I do strongly recommend, if you're not photosensitive, although I don't think photosensitivity should be a problem, but I do honestly recommend finding that montage if you can and just watching it.
Yeah.
Because it is a masterclass in how to show your audience that your character is completely unhinged.
Yeah.
And again, either that's way too much credit, or they did it accidentally and it was a flash of genius in an otherwise mediocre movie. I am feeling charitable today, so I'm going to say I've said that enough times that probably I should be giving them more credit than I am.
Yeah. Because the more we dive into this movie, the more credit I want to give the filmmakers.
Yeah, like a broken clock is only right twice a day, but this has hit a lot of beats very well.
Yeah.
To the point where that's no longer likely to have been accidental flash in the pan.
What once is happenstance, twice is a is a coincidence, 3 times you're getting a pattern.
Yeah. And I will say, we all only watched this movie literally half an hour before we went live today, so we're still processing it.
Yeah.
I would be interested in potentially, because we're doing Paranorman next week,
Yes.
but potentially giving a little time next week just to see how we feel about this film in a week's time.
Or possibly doing a brief revisit in our end of month recap.
Yeah, having that conversation then. Because
Yeah.
I think it's very... This is going to be a film that I can already feel it's going to be a film that I can't quite get out of my head.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a film not that haunts me, but that definitely
Niggles at you.
niggles. And I feel like I'll probably need to watch it again. And maybe even again, because it feels like those films that are a bit like... It's... Let me finish before anyone interrupts or draws a conclusion from what I'm going to say now. But it feels it's in the same vein as films like The Godfather. That when you first watch them, they're just a bit of a popcorn movie, and you think they're not that clever, and it's fairly straightforward. But the more you think about it, and the more happens, and the more you see it, the more you see.
Or like John Wick.
Yes, or like John Wick. It's one of those films that you can look at and you can go, who the fuck signed off on that? Like, that's just 9 kinds of stupid.
Yeah.
But the more you think about it, and it's dangerous in that way because it draws you in. But the more you think about it, the more you think, actually, no, they were saying something. They may not have said with the film what they intended to say, but they were definitely saying something.
Yeah.
That gives it worth a rewatch.
Yeah.
I don't think they're as clever as The Godfather in that The Godfather said exactly what it was trying to say. But I think it's up there as it probably inadvertently said a lot of things that it didn't intend to, and said enough of what it did intend to that makes it worth deeper consideration than it's a popcorn movie. What have I just done with 2 hours of my life?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say on that. And then we were talking about the ending. You said you really liked it, so I'm going to let you talk about it first because I have opinions.
Okay. So it ends back in the bar where it began.
Mm-hmm.
And so important plot detail during the breakdown, at the end of the breakdown sequence, Patrick calls his lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes and talks to the lawyer, and the lawyer kind of gaslights him, maybe. And about how, Patrick Bateman is such a spineless, he couldn't possibly, that would have been a funny joke if it were anyone else.
Mm.
And then Bateman goes back to his group of friends, and Reagan is on the TV apologizing for the Iran-Contra scandal. And the friends start talking about, how could such a monster be hiding so effectively?
Yeah, it's very ironic.
Yeah.
Like, this movie is winking at you hard at this point.
Yeah. And I don't know, I really liked, tying it to. I really liked tying it to Reagan.
Yes, because we've established if you ever travel back in time, you're going to go and the first thing you'll do is fix ergonomics.
Yeah.
After you've sorted out the 1979 election for me.
Fixed point in time.
Fine. But it's a very intelligent final scene.
Yeah.
And it's this final scene more than anything else that is making me say, give the film writers all of the credit.
Yeah.
Because it's intelligent. And it's got that. What film was I talking about before? Is it Once Upon a Time in America?
Yeah.
This film leaves you with that same feeling that film, if you've ever seen Once Upon a Time in America, the actual release, not the weird ass attempt at making it chronological, it leaves you with this dissatisfied feeling of confusion, but it also leaves you with this feeling of it's almost a thought terminating cliche you don't want to question any further. Like, you've got questions,
Yeah.
but you don't want to know the answer. And this film does the same. And I think that's a very, very clever ending.
Yeah.
And that's why I think if you're going to give this film credit, you've got to go whole hog.
Yeah.
Because to be able to put together an ending like that, that's not something you just trip over.
Yeah.
Now, there are various readings of this film. There's he's a psychopath, he murdered people, and his friends covered it up because he's the boss's kid.
Yeah.
Which is plausible. It's a very straight reading of the film, as in taking it as it is, not straight as in...
Yeah, very
straight.
face value.
Yeah. But it is a plausible reading. But for me, the way this film's paced, the way it's shot, some of the Easter eggs in it, which some that have been mentioned, some that haven't, for me, I don't think this is a film about a serial killer. This is a film about a man having a psychotic break. He's not a psychopath, he's having a psychotic break. He's having a break from reality. I think there's an argument to suggest that the people he thinks he's killed are people who maybe his stocks in trading destroyed and he's projecting something more gory onto that. But that's a bit of a stretch. That one is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
But this film is too farcical, is too plotless, is too disjointed for me to believe that it's entirely based in reality.
And there is a third, well, there's probably many more, but there is a third reading which I kind of lean into, that it's a mixture of the two.
Yeah. Like, did he go off and potentially kill a couple of call girls and a homeless guy, and then they found out and covered it up for him? Possibly.
Well, yeah, and especially because the call girl mentions that, last time, because he picks her up twice.
Mm.
And she mentions, last time I
I had to
ended
go to
up
the
in
emergency
I
room.
had to go to the emergency room.
Yeah. So I do think there are elements of reality within the plot.
Yeah.
But I think, and again, I may be giving the creators way too much credit. But for me, this film makes most sense when you view it as a man having a complete, probably stress-induced, given his lifestyle,
Yeah.
psychotic mental break. In
Yeah.
which he no longer can differentiate between reality and his darker thoughts. And everyone has intrusive thoughts about doing dark shit. That's
Yeah.
normal. It's whether you act on them or not that makes it a problem, or whether they're interfering in your life that makes them a problem.
Yeah.
And I think the guy is very. This film is not put together enough for me to believe that there's an actual. That he's actually a serial killer.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with the apartment and the woman in the apartment, is she either covering up for him or is she part of the plot? Is she not? Given the amount of buildings with long white corridors in this film,
Yeah.
and this is coming straight off the top of my head, hot off the presses, could be complete bullshit. Don't write it into an essay. I could possibly, if you gave me enough time and were willing to listen to enough of my bullshit, create an argument for this film being a psychiatric patient having an inpatient episode.
Yeah.
And that these flashes of white and these people around him are actually the other patients and the staff. And yeah, there's an argument for that. It's a flimsy argument because I haven't had time to flesh it out, but I could probably make that argument.
And aside from when the music goes, goes eerie to let us know that Patrick's getting stressed and probably going to go killing again. The score of the movie is largely pop songs from the 80s.
It is. And there's the way Patrick behaves, there's certain mannerisms on him with the raincoat and the way he runs through the lobby. Was anyone else struck by that? The way he ran through the lobby when he shot the guy. Did anyone else notice? He looked like the Joker's arms up,
I
legs
don't
up,
think I
and
did.
it looked really. Look, I'm dyspraxic, so I can say this. It looked really fucking dyspraxic. It's just arms everywhere, legs everywhere. He looked almost like he was a circus performer juggling as he's running.
Yeah.
It was just, it was totally incongruous. And it lacked the sanity of events happening in the real world.
Yeah.
So is this film an entirely theatre of the mind? Am I giving too much credit? Because if you made a film that's entirely theatre of the mind, but you've got generations of audiences believing it's about a real serial killer, well, kudos to you. But I don't think it's that clever, but I do think there are elements of this film that really make me think it's not based in reality. Because like you said, the ATM said, feed me the... yeah.
Also, in the scene where he's breaking up, I could swear that in shots that include the girlfriend, the drawing isn't there.
Yeah. And like things move in and out of the scenes, and it doesn't. There's an unreality to the entire thing.
Yeah, and obviously parts, though I think parts of it are really do happen in the context of the story.
Yeah. Like, do I think he asked his secretary out? Yeah.
The way I was looking at a lot of it, I think, is maybe the idea of, or at least the way my brain interpreted it was to go, a lot of the scenes where he is not in seem so much more grounded that it's almost like he's existing in a story, but he's having like intrusive thoughts that we're being shown visually, or maybe hallucinations sometimes. And then he has drawn or written about these things and he tells people about them. And it almost seems like other people dismiss them because he seems otherwise intelligent.
And he seemed they either dismissed them or they think they've got them under control. So they don't point them out to him. Because what's the one thing you don't do when you've got a psychiatric patient who says things like that to you is acknowledge those statements.
Yeah, because
with ASPD, you don't acknowledge the grandiosity, you don't acknowledge the lies, you don't acknowledge, because then you give the person.
And
so that's what I think. But that may be giving the film way too much credit.
Possibly, but I think it makes sense because there was that scene that they had he went into the lobby, shot the guy, and then the next scene was him going into the same lobby with the same guy and not shooting him.
And whipping out a pen, and it's almost as if he's walked through the lobby and gone, the guy said you need to sign in, and it's like, I just want to go to bed. I could fucking blow you away right now. Which is, if you're tired and it's late at night, probably a totally reasonable thought to have. What's not reasonable is to act on it. Like, people have really dark, intrusive thoughts. Like, where do you think most kinks come from, folks? And that's normal, and that's okay. Like, everyone has thought about killing. That's but even the third act breakdown of him going on this killing spree is so otherworldly, is so out there and ludicrous and like a movie. You sort of look at it and you go, that cannot be happening in real life. Like, that's the kind of third act breakdown, killing spree someone who's seen a lot of action movies puts together. That's not how it goes in real life. The car doesn't blow up in real life. He doesn't look at his gun confused because he managed to blow up a car with it in real life. He doesn't shoot an old lady because she told him off for hurting the kitten. He doesn't, there's, it's all, it's just too much. And that is, I say this fully aware that for most of this stream, I have spoken as if I didn't have this theory in mind. And the reason I've done that is because this theory solidified at the end of the film. And I had to work to it. And frankly, this theory solidified midway through this stream as I was talking. So it's got to be something that you build up to. But I do think there is an argument for it. That this is someone with a very active imagination who doesn't quite understand the difference between what's going on in his head and what's going on in his world. And I do have a few other points around that. all of the women are blonde, white. They have a specific look about them. Could that be a nurse in the asylum?
Yeah, I think a lot of the
Named
elements you
Nurse?
could ordinarily put down to it being a film.
Yeah. But even still, like, are these women the nurses who he's fantasizing about harming because they're what he views as his jailers? The men around him, are they other patients or are they the doctors? I think there is an argument to be had, even if only for fun. Like, do I suggest that anyone, if you ever have to write an essay on this movie, put this theory into your essay? No, because your tutor will probably laugh you out the room. But unless you can find citations to back it up, in which case, go right ahead. But it's an interesting prism to view the film through. And it does make a lot of points in the film that otherwise incongruous make sense.
Yeah, it's like when there's there is an additional something that is missing here, that does sound like a key element that just fits really nicely.
Yeah.
And I think that
it's telling as well that
I get the impression we both kind of
medication.
separately came to that conclusion.
Yeah. It's telling as well he's shown to be on medication in the film. And I think that there's a really interesting bit where he takes the medication, puts the bottle. Like, okay, first of all, when have you ever seen anyone who hasn't had their medication already measured out and handed to them in a little plastic cup like they're an inpatient, put a bottle of pills to their head like that? Not what you do. And that act is immediately followed by a crying fit, and he calls his secretary and makes excuses why he can't show up, almost as if he's feeling trapped and, like he's being forced to take this medication. And his brain is creating a narrative around that. That is a possible indicator of what I'm saying. And the more actually I think about this theory, the more it does make sense. That explains why he's got time every day to do 1,000 crunches. That explains why his flat looks like a frigging hospital with all the white and the silver, which is just, ugh. That explains why he does these occasional things with his body that are just incongruous to the moment, like the way he dances when he's killing the guy, or the run in the lobby, or other things he does that are just that are highly reminiscent of the Joker, basically, which is why I'm saying he should have been cast as the Joker.
Yeah, I think additionally it resolves a lot of the inconsistencies, like him not doing any work.
Yes. And why he's doing the crossword and she offers to help him. Like, that's someone checking in on a patient. And listening to the music. And all the things he does. And you can see why this character may have been institutionalized. You can pick out bits of his behavior where someone might have looked at him and said, especially in the 80s, when you could be institutionalized for all kinds of nonsense. I would lock him up just for those frigging music monologues. Not because I think that there's anything wrong with giving monologues like that, although clearly I do, when you're doing it in the tone he was doing them in. But, dude, you're a danger to society. Go away. That to me is the only way I can receive this film and not be really, really annoyed that I wasted 2 hours of my life watching nonsense, is to assume that it's a psychotic break in the process.
I think we reached a pretty similar conclusion there. As I was watching it, I was like, wait, this feels like it isn't all that it seems. But am I overstating this? Is this just? I think I said after the film was finished, is this just Mr. Popper's Penguins crossed with a slasher?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There will be people who, and there are people who go into real depth discussing this film online. It's like, discussing the social hierarchies and the power dynamics and it's a lot. Is this film? There's a lot of very heavy academic discourse to be had around this film. I appear to be alone. Oh no. But there's also a lot of scope to just sit and watch it if it's your kind of thing. Now, I don't think it's my kind of thing if it's just mindless violence and gore. But again, that's because I like watching films that make me think. And it's an interesting film to think about. I personally think I'm going to be trying not to think about it because I'll just give myself a headache. But there's a definite... I'm talking in circles, and folks, I'm doing it because both Ring and Chaos have abandoned me and I'm alone. So, yeah. I appear to be the only one with working internet right now, so if I'm talking in circles, I apologise. But this film is... I think what's frightening about this film is not the gore, the horror, the murder and the violence. What's frightening is the way it's ignored and the way it's explained away. And even if it is someone having a psychotic break and they haven't actually done those things, it's still frightening that we would let someone get to that state and all we would do is cover it up and pretend it wasn't happening. Because that's real. That happens in real life all the damn time. And that's frightening. And that's what leads to school shooters and serial killers. Because no one bothered to stop and look and go, hang on, you're not okay. And this comes back to, I think, one of the fundamental core ideas of this channel, which I'm sure Ring won't mind me commenting on. That media does not need to be censored. Media doesn't need to be removed or hidden. What we need is education, but we also need a society into which media can be released whereby people don't automatically look for the easy answer, the simple way of covering it over.
Hopefully I'm back.
Yes, you're back.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I was just saying, Ring.
Yeah.
One of our main core ideas is that we say, look, media shouldn't be censored, people should be educated.
Yeah.
And I think this film makes that point very well, that what's frightening in this film is not that he's a killer. It's not that he may or may not be having a psychotic break.
It's
not that
he faces
exactly.
he faces no consequences.
It's not even that. It's that everyone around him knew it was happening and had the opportunity at least once to intervene, and no one lifted a damn finger. And that happens in real life, and that's what's frightening to me about this film. Also, next time you two are gonna lose your internet, please don't do it simultaneously. That was scary.
Yeah, mine came back after a second, but then I was like, oh, I'm backstage now.
Yeah, and I was alone. But yeah, it's one of those things of no matter how privileged you are, no matter how rich you are, no matter how you're the big boss's son and all the rest of it, no one actually gives a shit when you really need help. Because if we take the character is having a psychotic break reading of this film,
Yeah.
how many people around him were failing him in this film?
Everyone.
Exactly. And that hits close to home, especially in the era where school shootings are all over the news and serial killers and all the rest of it. Like, whether people are the first to point and say, oh, he has mental health problems. Why is no one pointing at the people around him and saying they didn't help? Like,
well, yeah, and
we live in a society.
And Willem Dafoe keeps showing up, and you have these cat and mouse conversations, but nothing comes of them.
I mean, flat out, I think Will Dafoe's is probably his psychiatrist he's in a psych hospital reading of this movie. Also, I am primed, and I know he's been typecast, but anywhere Willem Dafoe appears, I immediately assume he's the bad guy and the villain because he's creepy. He's got a creepy face. He's probably a lovely guy, but he's got a really creepy face.
So he's got a bad case of evil face syndrome.
Yes, he's got evil face, in the extreme. Yeah. You shouldn't do that. That makes you look like you may have evil face syndrome.
So I'm not sure how much fun you're going to have then when we get to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man in November.
Oh God, is Willem Dafoe in that?
He's the Green Goblin.
Yeah, that's probably why I think he's evil. It's probably seeing him as a character like that has made me associate his face with evil. I'm sure he's lovely, but he's got a face a goblin, the mask. He's got that face. Poor guy. Again, probably lovely, but another good reason you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. But yeah.
Or a businessman by their business card.
Yeah. Let's be honest, Willem Dafoe, if you see him in a movie, he's playing one of two characters. He's either the big bad evil villain cackling at you, or he's the small town county sheriff.
Yeah.
Those are the two roles he plays.
There is a notable exception to that rule is the role he plays in the Northman. And spoilers for those who haven't seen the Northman but are familiar with Hamlet. One would say he is a fellow of infinite jest.
So you can't give spoilers out in Shakespeare language because I understand them. He's like, again, this is why. Sure, he's a lovely guy, so I'm sad that he's a fellow of infinite jest.
Yeah. Also, the Northman is really good.
I haven't watched it yet. I need to watch it.
It's a bit of a mindfuck, but it's really good.
I adjust you to the last 3 episodes of this channel. All we've done is mindfuck ourselves for weeks.
Well, next week, and this, I mean, we might as well roll into closing up and chilling. Next week is not as much of a mindfuck. We're actually watching a children's movie, or rather, how I like to term them, a family movie, because it's a kids movie with stuff for the adults.
It's a mindfuck because most of those movies are, especially if you watch them as an adult.
Yeah.
Seriously, go back and watch even classic Disney. They're creepy.
Yeah. But
Grimm's, Coraline.
So next week we're doing Paranorman as the last movie of our Spooktober, but we're gonna close it up with a generalized what have we learned kind of discussion the week afterwards, and then we're going into American Myth Mega Month.
I am just going to preemptively say we should have named this month Mindfuck Month.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect preamble to American Myth.
Yeah. Also,
and there's a joke about propaganda in that statement, folks, and I'm going to let it hang.
Also, it's weird how we structured this in a certain direction, and the movies were like, no, fuck you. We are structured, but not in the way you think.
Yeah. The thing is, we haven't talked about any of these movies in the way we said we were going to talk about them.
Yeah.
That discussion will be had at the end of the month, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So that's well worth having, because I have a lot of thoughts about these movies as a whole and about the horror genre of a whole that we can discuss, but wouldn't necessarily have fit into these streams.
No.
And I'm talking like I'm Italian again. Ignore me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting film. Once again, subverts expectations. I wonder if it's a hallmark of horror that you're never going to watch a film that has a certain audience reputation and it be about what the audience thinks it's about.
Yeah.
Is the hallmark of horror that the audience doesn't understand it? Discuss.
I mean, we'd have to get more data, because I mean, I still haven't seen The Shining, and that's got quite the reputation.
I tried reading the book; it gave me nightmares, so I stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a reputation. But that's something to discuss at the end of the month, I think.
And to quote, it's just some random guy, Defoe.
Yes.
Yep.
Again, awesome actor. You always know when he pops up on screen, you're either going to have the bejesus scared out of you, or you're about to watch a really awesome character play out in front of you. Sometimes both.
Even his his role in John Wick.
Yeah. Again, he's that guy. It's like if you were watching a movie and what other actors just pop up who you always know are good value. Like if Tom
Samuel L. Jackson?
Yeah. Samuel L. Jackson pops up, you know you're in for a good time. Lawrence Fishburne.
I think Adam Driver might be turning into one of those.
Yeah. Daniel Radcliffe post the Potter movies. He's good value. You know Daniel Radcliffe's in a movie, you know it's going to be a good movie. Rob Pattinson post Twilight.
Yeah.
So they're basically all big franchise survivors. I don't know what Defoe's franchise would have been, but the franchise survivors.
People who can
Who
afford to
play
be picky.
Well, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think. Yeah, I think Defoe is the outlier in that because he's more old school than big franchise. He kind of predates
Yeah.
big franchises a little bit. He was like a character actor who just got big.
Yeah. And again, this is what all those actors are character actors now.
Yeah.
Um,
So I think he'd more fit in with the old guard of like Peter Lorre, Peter Sellers.
yeah.
Um,
But again, it's that he's good value. Keanu Reeves.
yeah.
You know, if
Or
Keanu
like
Reeves is on screen, it's going to be good.
or like a comparable contemporary of his would be Steve Buscemi.
That was the name I was looking for. Steve
Yeah.
Buscemi. Yeah. Those people.
Yeah.
Actors with great personality. That comes across. And to be honest, his presence
There's
in
no
this
such thing as
film
an actor with good
immediately lent.
personality.
Thank you. Took you long enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, his presence in this film makes me think we should give it more credit than maybe we started out doing so.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't strike me as the kind of actor who picks a film that doesn't have a bit of depth to it.
Yeah.
Ralph Fiennes. Is it Ralph
Gad
Fiennes?
Potter. No, wait,
No, that's
wrong actor. Right
Right
franchise,
wrong actor.
Tom Felton. That's who I
Hmm.
thought you were talking about.
Yeah. No, Ralph Fiennes is Voldemort.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, a lot of the actors in Harry Potter, you could say that about Maggie Smith, Meryl Streep, although she wasn't in Harry Potter.
Yeah. And we are not giving any credit to the channel punching bag.
Oh no, this is all purely the actors because they're the ones who built a career after that franchise.
Yeah, and of course the talent scouts and casting director.
Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
Although he had his career before that franchise.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's characters are going to be good value. Like, yeah, Anthony Hopkins. If you see a film that's got Anthony Hopkins in it, we're going to the cinema to see that film. That's a thing that's going to happen. If you watch The Father bring tissues, it will break your heart. It well deserved the Oscars.
Ironically, one of the only Marvel franchises that I missed every single theatrical release for is the one that had Anthony Hopkins in it. Like, for those of you who don't know, he was Odin in the Thor movies.
But yeah, that's my takeaway. Like, give this film a good watch and a second watch if you didn't quite grasp it the first time.
Yeah.
I didn't. I freely admit that. Most of what I said I'll probably disagree with in a week once I've had a chance to think about it. But this film is well worth closer consideration.
Well, I mean, just talking through it, you're already disagreeing with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Give it another decade and this film should be considered a classic.
Yeah.
Like, this film will be one of those that appears on a list on a film studies degree module somewhere alongside The Godfather, alongside Goodfellas, alongside all those classic, Pulp Fiction, classic movies.
Yeah.
Silence of the Lambs. And it'll be there, and it will deserve its place there.
Yeah.
So yeah, what we have established, after you've all drunk your livers half to death, is that no, we aren't giving the creators too much credit.
Yeah.
And that's my final thought.
Yep. And I think that's a good final thought to finish out on. So, Chaos and Noodle, do you have anything coming up aside from Meaty Musings?
sleep.
Yeah, nothing relevant and soon enough to mention it. I'm kind of absorbed in trying to get the administrative work of starting university sorted.
Yeah, you get a pass.
And me, it's, trying to get the time and spoons to actually do stuff.
Yeah.
And being pulled between either getting the RPG system that I have in my head on paper or doing channel stuff. There's a reason Media Musings has become the mainstay of the channel. It's because it's easy to do.
Yeah. It's 2 hours to watch a movie, then 3 hours to talk about it and done.
Yeah.
Why not both? Okay, hands up, anyone who's still in the chat, who wants to see Ring do a series on how to create a tabletop RPG?
I'd be down.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
I want to see how you do that.
Though, that being said, I'd probably have to upgrade my StreamYards again because I downgraded it for the move.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, so next week, Paranorman. If schedule and spoons permit, I will be trying to do stuff. But for the most part, it's going to be Media Musings. So next week, Paranorman, and then November and December will be American Myth Mega Month because Christmas falls on a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And
Ringo's Frozen. Whoops.
Oops.
I'm sure they'll come back
Hopefully
in a minute.
not. Yeah. Hopefully not another modem restart.
Hopefully not. But I wonder if this bodes for a white Christmas that Ring froze right as discussing Christmas. Someone call a bookies. I've got a bet to place. I'm now making the sounds Ring makes when Ring's waiting for things.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's kind of like we've given final thoughts.
Yes.
So there's not really much more on the film to discuss.
There's not, but we can fill it so Ring can come back and do taglines and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
How's the weather?
Pretty standard. Grey, miserable, generally acceptable.
Yeah, there's a reason
Standard,
I look washed out
British
despite
weather.
having 2 different bulbs on me. They're grey. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's Britain in October. There's not even a lot to say about that.
No, there really isn't. Like, the only interesting thing about the weather for me right now is simply that I'm going to have to work out a way to do wood cutting inside. Because I'm going to be doing a bit of building.
Wait till March. That's my advice. Wait till March and do it outside.
Valid. Fair. Well, either that or I'll just go to my dad's and be like, hey, Dad, I'm going to pinch the bathroom with the extractor fan in it.
That'll do it. Though I think there's some, depending on what you're using to cut the wood, some power tools have an attachment that you can attach your vacuum to so it does it. Or you can like jimmy up.
I am using a manual saw.
Okay, so what you do is you jimmy up a rig, or you use the saw a little bit, and you have the vacuum next to you, so you can just vacuum as you go.
This is true. We've got a Henry Hoover, so that'll do.
Yeah, Henry will do. Henry can do anything. Like, do you know what?
Yeah.
After the apocalypse, in the crater where Britain used to be, there'll be like 6 Henry Hoovers, 2 Nokias, and a cockroach.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am slowly turning into, despite having said I wouldn't, the DIY lesbian a little bit. Because I'm like, ooh, I could make myself an altar and a TV stand and a small desk.
No, chaos. You're not turning into a DIY lesbian. You're not. What you're doing is what every undergrad who looked at the relative quality and cost of IKEA shit did in their first month of uni, who also happen to have a
Fair.
parent or other person who owns power tools. That's what you're doing. They're doing that, which is good.
Fair.
But you're not quite becoming a power tool lesbian yet. If you're still doing it in like your third year, then yeah, you can. But right now you're kind of you're like a little cell.
I'm still in the acceptable region.
Yeah, you're still in the normal region. You're still in the I'm northern and I refuse to spend that much on garbage IKEA furniture.
Yeah, when you can get wooden pallets for free or for like £1, it's like you might as well.
Yeah, you might as well. And you'd be surprised what you can put together with a pallet, a hammer, a few nails, and a saw.
Yeah, I've got an electric drill.
Even better. And I am going to completely sidestep the electric drill lesbian power tools joke there.
Like, this is fair. It had occurred to me.
Yes.
No, my dad recently gave me really stereotypically, it's a red toolbox with a black handle.
Yes, because that's the color scheme for. Is it no? Makita's the teal. Snap on a red and white. Yes, I also own tools that are red and black. It's the color scheme people go for some reason. But cool, have fun with that. Don't chop any fingers off, at least not your own. If you're going to chop anyone else's fingers off, don't get caught. Probably shouldn't say that after 2 weeks of talking about serial killers.
If I'm going to chop off anyone else's fingers, I'll be using my little sibling's saw and not mine.
Yes. Also, make sure you've got a plan for what to do afterwards. Don't be the guy we've just spent. Also, that's one thing we didn't talk about, so we're going to talk about it now while we're waiting for Ring.
Yes. Incompetence.
This man was incompetent. Like, I am more insulted and more offended at his incompetence than his killing. If he's an actual real killer, as discussed, or taken as read, etc. Because, dude, fingerprints everywhere. What's with the raincoat? Did you really think no one was going to notice the newspaper taped to the floor? Why are you taking your bed sheets to a laundry service and then arguing with them about it? You do realise your driver knows enough about you to put you away for several decades. Why are you drawing out your kill on a restaurant tablecloth? Just the guy was begging to be caught.
He was, and the other thing is when he put on the raincoat to chop the guy up, he didn't even wear a face mask. So the blood got all over his face and in his mouth.
Yes. No, this is a joke that also exists in the Hannibal fandom with Hannibal's squeaky onesie. Because Hannibal has a squeaky onesie. It's a plastic onesie he wears to kill people. Because God forbid he get his suit
Yes.
dirty. But it has a hood and a thing, and it goes around here. It's like the ones forensics people wear, but it's clear because apparently white would be too common, and you have to see the thousands of dollars worth of designer suit under it. It's Hannibal. He's a drama queen. But
in fairness, yeah, Hannibal may consider it rude to cover that up.
yeah, like the tailor worked all that time. He's not going to cover it up. But like serial killers need to stop thinking about aesthetics and start thinking about not getting caught. Fictional ones, the real ones, by all means.
Yeah, like
yeah.
Oh yeah, I think for fictional serial killers, if you're going to have a thing that is the common trait amongst all your kills, have a singular thing and not multiples, because multiples allow them to cross-reference between two trends, and that gives a significantly smaller data set to work with to try and find you.
Yes. But also, if you take the same thing repeatedly, eventually they're going to notice that much quicker. So
Yes.
swings and roundabouts. But just in general, murder ones.
Yeah, it makes it up a bit.
Gloves and face mask, yes. This also counts during COVID times for normal people. Murder onesie,
Yes.
no. Face mask, yes.
Yeah. This one less
ridiculous.
so for most people, but also.
Yes.
Also, items like burner phones and burner clothes.
Yes. Also, don't argue, like, don't make yourself memorable to the people who you are relying on to cover for you, i.e. the laundry woman who you threatened to murder. Like, dude.
Yeah. Also, don't tell some random hooker about it.
I mean, to be fair, he did kill the hooker later, so yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
But yeah, I mean, the one thing he did get right, and which is fairly common amongst serial killers, is he went for people with no social capital, who generally, I hate to say it, society doesn't really care if they go missing. Or at least he did while he was still under control at the start. Homeless people, streetwalkers. There's a reason he targeted those demographics. Gay men in the 80s. There's a reason those kind of people were targeted. A black man. There's a reason, like, again, it's not because he gave a shit. Like, traditionally, it was believed that serial killers tended to hunt within their own demographic. Yeah, but also, no.
Okay, I'm back.
Yay, rings back.
Hello.
Okay, so before my internet goes again, let's next week Paranorman Media Musings taglines. Noodle, go.
Take care, be good, and if you can't be good, remember, use your noodle.
Chaos, go.
Have a day, and remember, communication is key.
And remember, the purpose of a storyteller is...
Damn it! Oh my god! This is just, never mind Halloween episode. This
So
should
close.
be the fucking April 1st episode. Oh my god. Sorry, you're just gonna have to watch me corpsing for a minute.
Oh god.
I'm having giggles now.
It's all good.
I'm dying. I'm dying. Anyway, we were talking about incompetence.
We were. I think that there is about the main character in this film as well is certain. It feels like either his incompetence was intentionally to contrast his like high up position, or it's a consequence of it.
I think it's a way of illuminating. It's a way of trying to put across on screen the concept of delusions of grandeur.
Okay. So in case no one caught the last time, the purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think on. Too often we forget that. Bye.
Bye.